Last night, the United States conducted an illegal invasion of Venezuela and kidnapped the dictator/president Nicolás Maduro. He has been brought back to the United States and has been charged in New York by Trump's DOJ. Donald Trump held a press conference earlier this morning from Mar-a-Lago where he and Pete Hegseth declared total victory while having no idea what comes next. The Democratic world has rallied behind opposition leader Maria Machado and democratically elected President Edmundo Gonzalez, who was recognized as the rightful president of Venezuela in 2024 by the United States. But Trump threw Machado under the bus during his press conference, claiming that she doesn't have the respect or support of the people.
Mr. President, on Monday...
I think it would be very tough for her to be the leader. She doesn't have the support within or the respect within the country. She's a very nice woman, but she doesn't have the respect to be the leader.
Now, don't forget, Maria Machado won the Nobel Prize last year, even dedicating it to Trump. She also claimed during this invasion, after they had taken Maduro, that the hour of freedom had arrived. Maria Machado's statement says that it is time that the fairly elected president, Edmundo Rodriguez, take his rightful position. She got all excited thinking that dedicating the Nobel Peace Prize to Donald Trump was going to get him on her side. Instead, Donald Trump just completely threw her under the bus, a very popular leader. Because Donald Trump had no idea of what comes next, Delcy Rodriguez, Maduro's vice president, has been sworn in as the new president of Venezuela. Because even though they took out Maduro, they left behind his entire regime and all of his generals. His Minister of Justice and Peace is still alive in Venezuela, encouraging people to take up arms against the invading American force. This is Diosdado Cabello, the Minister of Interior and Justice in Venezuela, wearing bulletproof vests and standing with a bunch of armed men in the streets, standing up against Donald Trump and the U.S. invasion. This guy is a massive figure in Venezuelan politics and Venezuelan corruption. He was a huge part of Hugo Chávez's regime. He has often been described as the second most powerful man in Venezuela, so him still being there does not bode well for the freedom and democracy of the Venezuelan people. Even Marco Rubio, who Trump claims is running Venezuela now, knows that this guy is a bad dude. This is a tweet from Marco Rubio in 2024 saying, "For those new to the issue of Venezuela, let me introduce you to the charming Diosdado Cabello, Minister of Drug Trafficking and Corruption. In partnership with high-ranking generals, he runs the Cartel de los Sols, $10 million available to anyone who can help make him a resident of the U.S. federal prison system." So it's pretty crazy to be claiming that this is a victory when that guy is still around. And Trump also claimed during this press conference that VP Rodriguez, who's now the president, spoke with Marco Rubio and that she is willing to work with this administration.
You said earlier today that you weren't going to back Machado to come back and be the opposition leader in your Fox and Friends interview. And then you also mentioned the vice president of Venezuela. Are you going to work with the vice president of Venezuela, or how do you foresee the relationship going?
I understand she was just sworn in, but she was, as you know, picked by Maduro. So Marco's working on that directly. Just had a conversation with her, and she's essentially willing to do what we think is necessary to make Venezuela great again. Very simple.
Now, Delcy Rodriguez is not acting like someone who wants to work with Donald Trump. She declared what happened a kidnapping and said that Maduro is the one true president.
Toda Venezuela y el decreto que ya fue suscrito por el presidente Maduro, único presidente de Venezuela. Hay un solo presidente en este país que se llama Nicolás Maduro Moro.
Apparently, Rodriguez is also in Russia now, which is a very interesting coincidence. Russia is denying it, of course. She also stated in her press conference that Venezuela will not be part of a colony. Venezuela's Vice President Delcy Rodriguez condemned the U.S. attack and capture of President Nicolás Maduro on Saturday, saying in a televised address the nation will never return to being the colony of another empire. Delcy and her brother Jorge Rodriguez, who is the president of the National Assembly of Venezuela, have apparently been the real leaders of Venezuela, while Maduro is more of like a figurehead. Her ascent to power, much like Cabello's, does not seem to be great for the people of Venezuela. Now, even though Rodriguez has been sworn in and she is being defiant in the face of this American invasion, Trump claims that the U.S. is going to run Venezuela.
We don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. And it has to be judicious because that's what we're all about. We want peace, liberty, and justice for the great people of Venezuela, and that includes many from Venezuela that are now living in the United States and want to go back to their country. It's their homeland.
Trump says the U.S. is going to run Venezuela judiciously, which is ironic considering Trump has never done anything in his life with good sense. He also says that we're going to help the people of Venezuela, and he even promised to reimburse them.
And we're going to make sure that this is proper. We're there now. We're ready to go again if we have to. We're going to run the country right. It's going to be run very judiciously, very fairly. It's going to make a lot of money. We're going to give money to the people. We're going to reimburse people that were taken advantage of. We're going to take care of everybody. It's very important. We couldn't let them get away with it. You know, they stole our oil. We built that whole industry there, and they just took it over like we were nothing. And we had a president that decided not to.
Trump mentioned the word oil so many times during this press conference. And it's interesting because Trump and his DOJ originally claimed that this whole invasion was about drugs. And when they arrested Maduro, they hit him with a bunch of drug-related charges. This is a tweet from Attorney General Pam Bondi saying Nicolás Maduro and his wife Celia Flores have been indicted in the Southern District of New York. Maduro has been charged with narco-terrorism conspiracy, cocaine importation conspiracy, possession of machine guns and destructive devices, and conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices against the United States. They will soon face the full wrath of American justice on American soil in American courts. On behalf of the entire U.S. DOJ, I would like to thank President Trump for having the courage to demand accountability on behalf of the American people, and a huge thank you to our brave military who conducted this incredible and highly successful mission to capture these two alleged international narco traffickers. These charges are super interesting because, as one journalist asked Trump during this press conference, he recently pardoned the ex-president of Honduras, Juan Orlando Hernandez, for very similar crimes.
Can you explain, you said that Maduro is responsible for drug trafficking. You recently pardoned the former president of Honduras who was convicted of many drug trafficking. Can you explain how these two situations are different? And would you ever pardon Maduro?
I endorsed, as you know, the winning president, the man who won in Honduras. I endorsed the man who won in Chile. I endorsed the man who won in Argentina. And we are doing very well with that whole group. What the man that I pardoned was, if you could equate it to us, he was treated like the Biden administration treated a man named Trump. That didn't work out too well for them. This was a man who was persecuted very unfairly. He was the head of the country. He was persecuted very unfairly. And there are a number of them. And we felt that it was a very unfair situation that happened to him. He's also a party member of the man who won. So obviously the people liked what I did. And one of the reasons that was done is because of the fact that the party in power felt very strongly that that man was treated very badly. I studied it very quickly, and then I studied it in great detail. I went to a lot of the people standing behind me, and they felt that that man was persecuted and treated very badly. That's why I gave him a pardon.
His public explanation for why he pardoned Hernandez is that he identifies with him because he was also unfairly prosecuted by the opposition party. He claims that he studied it quickly and in great detail, and that the yes men behind him all agreed that Hernandez was unfairly prosecuted. And that's all insane, and at the same time, Hernandez was a massive drug trafficker, and Trump pardoned him, and now he's arresting Maduro on those same claims. So who's to say that Trump's not going to pardon Maduro in 3 months from now? J.D. Vance also decided to get involved in all of this, even though he was missing from the press conference and the Situation Room pictures, by tweeting out that this is not an illegal arrest of Maduro because Maduro had been charged. He says, and PSA for everyone saying this was illegal, Maduro has multiple indictments in the United States for narco-terrorism. You don't get to avoid justice for drug trafficking in the United States because you live in a palace in Caracas. But apparently if you've been charged and indicted and thrown in prison for drug trafficking into the United States, you can just get a presidential pardon, right, JD? Also, this implies that if Pam freaking Bondi or Kash Patel bring up charges against anyone, the United States is justified in bombing their country and kidnapping them. Like, yes, Maduro is an evil authoritarian dictator who staged a coup and led a corrupt and violent government full of gangsters. But Donald Trump is also guilty of those things. He also denied a free and fair election and worked for years to undermine elections. He's currently trying to stage a coup to either cancel elections completely or rig them in his favor. Trump also imposed sanctions and tariffs on Brazil because they held Bolsonaro accountable for attempting a coup very similar to January 6th. This regime acts like they're doing this to stop crime or whatever, but they are one of the most corrupt regimes on earth. They are also probably one of the most incompetent administrations to have ever existed. Just look at this picture of the skiff that they threw together at Mar-a-Lago. Oh, did I mention all of this is happening at Mar-a-Lago, the golf club that Donald Trump owns? First of all, VP Vance is notably missing from not just this picture, but the entire press conference too. Second, those are see-through curtains separating this fake situation room from a literal golf club filled with Trump sycophants and opportunists. And third, if you zoom in on the television behind Pete Hegseth, they are literally searching Elon Musk's Twitter for what appears to say Venezuela. They're more focused on getting likes on Twitter by Russian bots than they are about the Venezuelans on the ground affected by this. Trump has no idea what's going on. He has no plan, and none of them have any idea of what comes next. He claims Marco Rubio talked to Rodriguez and that they're all on the same page, but she's over in Russia, which Russia is denying, saying down with the American regime while Nicolás Maduro is our true president. This administration has also dropped all pretense about drugs and are just directly saying that this is about controlling Venezuela's oil. Venezuela has like the most oil reserves in the world, and Donald Trump wants to sell it to the highest bidder. Their oil is also under the control of Russia and is bought by China, so this move is pissing everyone off. Trump's inner circle is deeply connected to the oil companies in Russia. I'm going to add a link in the comments below to a Midas Touch video that does a deep dive on the oil connections here. Basically, if they do manage to get their hands on this oil, it's going to make a lot of Trump's friends and family very wealthy. Here he is talking about selling the oil.
China, Russia, and Iran have interests in Venezuela. How does this operation affect your relationships with them when it comes to the oil and the drugs?
In terms of China and Russia, Russia when we get things straightened out. But in terms of other countries that want oil, we're in the oil business. We're going to sell it to them. We're not going to say we're not going to give it to them. In other words, we'll be selling oil probably in much larger doses because they couldn't produce very much because their infrastructure was so bad. So we'll be selling large amounts of oil to other countries, many of whom are using it now, but I would say many more will come.
Trump mentions the infrastructure in Venezuela. He goes on to say that we're going to spend billions to rebuild their oil infrastructure and that the oil companies are going to pay for it. Sure, buddy. He also claims that Venezuela stole all of our oil and we have to get it back, which is complete BS. Oil is literally in their country. It's theirs. It's not ours. But Trump is just trying to normalize the idea that everything belongs to the United States. So yes, it is about oil, but it's also about Trump's ego and his need to steal everything. And it's also about Pete Hegseth's bloodlust. Hegseth also spoke at this press conference, and he is still trying to make his F around and find out thing happen.
Just like Iran had their chance. Until they didn't and until he didn't. He effed around and he found out. President Trump is deadly serious about stopping the flow of gangs and violence to our country. Deadly serious about stopping the flow of drugs and poison to our people. Deadly serious about getting back the oil that was stolen from us. And deadly serious about reestablishing American deterrence and dominance in the Western Hemisphere. This is about the safety, security, freedom, and prosperity of the American people. This is America first. This is peace through strength. And the United States War Department is proud to help deliver it.
And despite what Pete Hegseth says, this has nothing to do with helping the American people. They don't even have a plan for what comes next. And in the moment, they get to pretend to be all badass. Meanwhile, Venezuela is still being ran by an extremely corrupt and violent government who are defying Trump. Trump was also threatening the other leaders in Venezuela during this speech, basically saying that if they don't do what he wants, more bombings and kidnappings will take place. He kept talking about boots on the ground and how we're prepared for that, and he kept mentioning a second wave. And the threats didn't stop there either. Earlier this morning, Trump threatened that Mexico could potentially be invaded next, and during this press conference, he threatened an invasion of Colombia and Cuba.
Mr. President, Colombian President Gustavo Petro, a couple weeks ago, he said he's got to watch his ass. And today, he said he's not concerned about anything happening to him in the aftermath of this operation. So, just what your message is about that?
Well, he has cocaine mills. He has factories where he makes cocaine. And yeah, I think I stick by my first statement. He's making cocaine. They're sending it into the United States. So he does have to watch his ass.
And here he is threatening Cuba.
Go ahead.
Yeah, is there a message here for Cuba and Diaz-Canel?
Well, Cuba's an interesting case. Cuba is, not doing very well right now. That system has not been a very good one for Cuba. The people there have suffered for many, many years. And I think Cuba is going to be something we'll end up talking about because Cuba is a failing nation right now, very badly failing nation. And we want to help the people. It's very similar in the sense that we want to help the people in Cuba, but we want to also help the people that were forced out of Cuba and living in this country. Do you want to say something about that, Marco, please?
He talks about helping the people of Cuba and helping those who were forced out of Cuba the same way Putin talks about liberating the people of Ukraine. He helped Venezuela by kidnapping one guy and plunging the city of Caracas into darkness, only for everyone to wake up to Delcy Rodriguez being sworn in. The people of Venezuela are lining up at grocery stores and banks because they don't know what's going to happen next. He helped the people who were forced out of Venezuela by sending masked Gestapo agents to kidnap them and send them to CICOT to be tortured, only for most of them to be sent right back to Venezuela, where they are now at risk of being bombed by the U.S. military. So Trump wants to liberate the people of Venezuela, and he also wants to take back the oil they stole from us. All he's doing is trying to normalize the idea that literally everything belongs to the U.S. He expands on this in his conclusion by saying our home region includes all resources and land that protects our national security.
So just in concluding, for decades, other administrations have neglected or even contributed to these growing security threats in the Western Hemisphere. Under the Trump administration, we are reasserting American power in a very powerful way in our home region. And our home region is very different than it was just a short while ago. The future will be, and we did this in my first term. We had great dominance in my first term, and we have far greater dominance right now. Everyone's coming back to us. The future will be determined by the ability to protect commerce and territory and resources that are core to national security. These are core to our national security. Just like tariffs they've made our country rich, and they've made our national security stronger than ever before.
Hilarious, by the way, real quick, that he ended his speech by talking about tariffs, considering he paused his tariffs on furniture and pasta, which was supposed to go in effect this week. So if tariffs are so great, why are you stopping them, Trump? He's used that language like that when talking about Greenland also, which incidentally Stephen Miller's wife was tweeting about earlier. She writes soon with a picture of Greenland covered in the American flag. Nothing imperialistic about that. Stephen Miller, by the way, was in the Situation Room. He definitely played a huge hand in this invasion because he's basically the freaking shadow president. So yeah, this is obviously about oil, not so much about drugs, but this is also about imperialism. Donald Trump believes that the world belongs to him personally. He said on Fox News earlier that nobody can stop us from taking whatever we want.
Can't take a chance after having done this incredible thing last night of letting somebody else take over, where we have to do it again. We can do it again, too. Nobody can stop us. There's nobody that has the capability that we have.
He sounded terrible in that Fox interview, by the way. But also, this invasion is apparently a huge investment for scummy tech bros. Finance industry eyes investment opportunities in Venezuela. Some on Wall Street are already considering possible investment opportunities in Venezuela following the capture of Nicolás Maduro, according to Charles Myers, chairman of consulting firm Signum Global Advisors and a former head of investment advisory firm Evercore. Myers said in an interview he is planning a trip to Venezuela with officials from top hedge funds and asset managers to determine whether there are investment prospects in the country under new leadership. The trip will feature about 20 officials from the finance, energy, and defense sectors, among others. Wall Street is already capitalizing on this, and the tech bros are taking advantage of this by using Polymarket to place bets. A newly created Polymarket account invested over $30,000 yesterday in Maduro's exit. The U.S. then took Maduro into custody overnight, and the trader profited $400,000 in less than 24 hours. Insider trading is not only allowed on prediction markets, it's encouraged. That literally could have been Pete Hegseth placing that bet and just making money off of his own invasion. Democrats are scrambling to respond to this, as are some Republicans. Thomas Massey has spoken out against this. The Democrats are going to have an emergency caucus meeting tomorrow. Jeffries called it out for being an illegal invasion, and Chris Murphy wrote an extended statement about how Trump has no idea what's going on. Oversight Committee Democrats also issued a statement today noting that today is the date that the DOJ was supposed to explain their redactions in the Epstein files. We're sure it's just a coincidence, but today is the statutory date for the DOJ to explain its redactions in the Epstein file productions. We have not forgotten, and we won't let up, regardless of the president's new unconstitutional actions. The entire world is responding by backing the opposition party. French President Macron tweeted out support for Edmundo Gonzalez, and the Oppo party has been in touch with other countries. Notably missing from the list of countries that the opposition party has talked to is the United States. Nicolás Maduro is a dictator who has terrorized a nation for over a decade. He ascended to power after the death of Hugo Chavez, and he continued Chavez's legacy of plunging Venezuela deeper into poverty and terror. Him being arrested is objectively a good thing, although I'm not optimistic about this current DOJ's ability to prosecute him, considering Trump's hand-picked attorneys keep getting their cases thrown out in court because they are objectively terrible at their jobs. But Maduro did need to be removed from power. With that being said, the vacuum was immediately filled by a member of Maduro's regime who is defiant in the face of Trump's declaration that the U.S. will rule Venezuela. Maduro's followers are mobilizing in the streets, and the world is plunging into chaos because of Donald Trump's reckless disregard for the Constitution and the lives of the Venezuelan people. If history has taught us anything, war over oil, even when disguised as an attempted regime change, never ends well for the people that we're trying to liberate. We spent decades in Afghanistan. Hundreds of thousands of lives were lost, trillions of dollars were spent, and the country is worse off today than it was. Regime change never works, especially when conducted at the hands of a racist, incompetent, malignant narcissist, accused pedophile who is taking cognitive tests every single month while gobbling down aspirin like they're Thin Mints. Venezuelan people deserve freedom, democracy, and peace. They don't deserve false hope from Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth. Thank you so much for watching, and follow this channel for more updates on this story and all things MAGA.